Hey YouTube, top of the morning to you. It's another beautiful day in God's country here in the Upper Peninsula, the country of the UP. It's a great day for independent, critical thinkers and freedom-loving human beings all over the earth we stand on that lies within the waters. Thank you for taking a moment out of your day to hang out with me, Lucky Haskins. Here's an unusual thing that you don't hear roll out of Lucky Haskins' mouth too often. I ain't got shit to say this morning. Not a damn thing. So I'm having some coffee and about to light a Marlboro. And I said, well, what am I going to say this morning? It's really unusual for me not to have anything to say. And so I did the right thing and said, roll tape, baby. Let's do this. Lucky ain't got shit to say. Here's the updates, folks. Looks like Bob accepted my mercy. As, of course, I predicted he would. Bob ain't dumb, yo. Bob the science guy is going to go ahead and pack his helmets up. Accept my mercy. And move along, evidently. I sent him a little follow-up and said, well, I would suggest you don't pick on Brian Mullins anymore as he's a helpless target. So either Bob's just twiddling his thumbs trying to figure out a way to play football with old Lucky Haskins, or he's just going to accept my offer of mercy and move along like an intelligent human being would. Bob's a puppet of the system, but he knows he can't cross old Lucky. Why? Because I'm not compartmentalized, folks, at all. Nobody has ever told me what to do. Ever. I remember somebody one time, we was out on the road, and somebody one time told my bass player, well, you need to get Lucky to try this certain type of guitar. I was off in the distance sort of listening, and I heard him say, that dude's a rebel's rebel. You even mention a guitar he should play. He ain't gonna play it. I'm listening from the distance as I'm working. He says, that dude, he gonna do what he's gonna do. That's what you learn when you live on the bus with me for a while, folks. Back in the day, I was pretty hardcore. 8 months out of the year, we were living on the bus. You gotta really like getting on stage and playing music 4 nights a week to live on a bus for 8 months out of the year. And it was a lot better for me because I had, 12 guitars and my little black book. The guys in the band, they suffered a lot. They didn't have shit to do. But, hell, I told you I didn't have shit to say. But, yeah, road stories. Stories from the road. Racism's a big topic nowadays, folks. Lucky's always laughed at that. I was born knowing I'm a member of the human race. Is racism real? Yeah, there's one of us, the human race. And these parasites we're up against, probably not human, folks. So Lucky's going to give you another road story right here. 3 of us on the road. Old Irishman driving the bus, booking the gigs. I used to drive with the Rand McNally on one leg and my calendar on the other and the phone in my hand. Booking gigs while I'm driving us to the next one. That's how it is when you're an independent musician, folks. Not a whole lot of free time out there on the road, except for right after the gig. The little black book. What the hell does Lucky know? So here's a funny story for you, because old Lucky just don't play this racism crap. Yeah, I want a couple guys in my band that are a member of the human race. It's good enough for me. Are they men of character, and can they play their ass off? That's the requirements, folks. Are you a good guy, and can you play? Think I care what your skin looks like, or where you were born, or where you're from, or any of that? Then you all don't know Lucky Haskins. It's all business, folks. I want the best guy for the job. And that doesn't necessarily mean he's the absolute best player, because it's a big job and there's a lot going on. But I always paid more than everybody in Detroit. Typically, there's a couple fellas with some nice gigs. I'm not saying I paid better than everybody, but I paid better than the going rate by far, close to double. A lot of guys in Detroit want you to come out and play all night for $60. Oh, Lucky don't want you to answer your phone for $60, y'all. I never ask a professional to answer his phone for $60. So what that means is I had a really, really good pick of some of the top musicians in Detroit. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of guys that can live on a bus for 8 months because they have things called lives. They have wives and kids and, grandmas and aunts and uncles and shit to do, generally speaking. If somebody is an extremely talented, let's just say bass player, when I find me an extremely talented bass player that can just absolutely get up and swing it all night, talking a badass cat, been doing it since birth, he's probably pretty intelligent. You know what that means? He's got shit to do. He's not waiting for old Lucky's $200 a night. You know what I mean? Now, so I'm on the road with a, I don't even know what words to use, right? The dude was born in the United States, McAllen, Texas, but he's a Mexican dude, right? Because, like I said, old Lucky don't do racism. But essentially, I got a Mexican dude on the drums, and I got a black guy on the bass. I got a brother playing the bass. Anybody who plays music's going to tell you it's always a blessing to have a brother on the bass. Why? Them dudes have rhythm when they come out of the womb. If you can't admit that, is it because of the color of their skin? Hell no, folks. It's called culture. Okay? We're all a member of the same race. Some of these brothers, let's just admit it, white boys, some of these brothers are a little more cultured in the aspects of being down home and having some soul. Okay? Old Lucky's always happy when I got a black guy on the bass, because we're going to swing just that much more authentically, real, down home. Play it like you mean it. Play it like you feel it. Okay? So I got a black guy on the bass. Doesn't mean I had white guys. I had Mexican guys. Hell, I've had everybody on the bass. But listen, so I'm telling you a story here about racism. Right? So you got a white Irishman that apparently is the most rebellious dude that anyone's ever met, driving the bus, booking the gigs, and getting up there with the microphone and fronting the band. Now, I've been fronting bands so long, I can hire a good bass player without playing a single gig with him and bring him on the road with me if I've seen him play and I'm aware of how he plays. Because I call the show from the microphone. When guys would first start playing with me, I'd see them up there talking to the drummer, or they're trying to ask me, hey, what are we starting with? I say, I don't know, man. We're 35 seconds from showtime. Oh, Lucky don't know what we're going to play. The new musician in the band will be a little nervous, right? He's looking at the drummer. What's he going to play? Drummers don't know. I don't know. I swear to God, I don't have any idea. Neither does he. No, we're 5 minutes from the show. The bass player's going, what fucking key are we going to be in? I'm going, I don't know, man. Hey, I get the microphone. Hey, how you doing, everybody? Glad to be here. We're about to play. The bass player's tripping out because he's a new guy. It's his first gig. He's looking at the drummer. What key are we going to be in? Drummer's going, I have no idea, man. I don't know what Lucky gonna do. He's been with me for 2 years. He don't give a shit what I'm gonna play, right? He knows better. Lucky needs a few sips off the old Crown Royal. Once my stuff's ready to go and everything's cool and I know I got a show, I start flapping my jaws. But I got to get a couple of sips, folks, off the old Crown Royal. Keep these old throat pipes in line. We got 3 hours to do. So I'm talking to the audience. The bass player's back there freaking out. What key are we going to be in? Hell, I don't know. All right, and I never do tell them, usually. Or it'll go something like this, folks. I'm talking to the audience, blah, 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 blah. I'll turn around and look at the band and go, hey, we're down in G. Let's go. Bam! I've been working that microphone for so long, folks. If you're a professional musician, you know, like some of my friends here online, okay, there's guys I could play with that I would pull an on-the-fly gig. Maybe there's a jam night down at the local hall. Oh, Fam calls me and say, Fam, bring your keys out, man. Rico's tinfoil sombrero. I just was watching him play the drums this morning. We'll get Rico on drums. All these boys can just show up, get up there and set up their stuff with old Lucky. They don't have to know what we're going to play, because I'm going to start the song by going, hey, we're down in G. Follow me. And I'm going to start playing my guitar. And in seconds, they're going to go, oh, fair enough. Follow Lucky. I call every break. I call, you know. And, of course, the longer you've been playing with me, the more you learn how to read my bullshit antics from the stage, and I don't really have to do much. Couple little hands up in the air here and there. Use the guitar neck. Here comes, let's throw a break here, fellas, because I do everything on the fly. Nothing, I never have memorized a guitar solo. You know, probably the last guitar solo I've memorized in my life was Randy Rhoads' Revelation Mother Earth when I was very, very young, because it's one of the most badass guitar solos ever laid down on record, if you're a fan of that kind of guitar playing. Randy Rhoads was just incredible, man. You listen to the first two Ozzy records, and when it's time for Randy's solo, you can disregard the entirety of the rest of the song, because Randy's guitar solo is a song in itself on almost every track. And if you go back and listen, you'll see what I'm saying. Here's Ozzy's song, kicking ass. Then it's Randy's solo, and you're on a different planet, folks. You're in the middle of a symphony, and Randy just gave you a whole new song inside Ozzy's song, and then it segues right back into Ozzy's badass song. Randy Rhoads was one of the most gifted and talented guitar players to ever walk the face of this earth. Now, do I think he got killed out there on the farm by a plane? Absolutely not. Not buying it for a second. I've done enough research to know that all the signs are there. Put it that way. Okay, so I'm not believing it. If he is, rest in peace, Randy Rhoads. You know, but am I believing it? No way. All the puzzle pieces are there. First of all, Randy had already made it openly known that this was his last tour. Now, Ozzy was basically ready to hang it up prior to meeting Randy Rhoads. Sharon talked Ozzy into making a record, and Ozzy was so depressed from getting thrown out of Black Sabbath. He was just hanging his head listening to these idiots shuffle through his studio playing a billion licks. And, of course, we all know the story. Supposedly, Randy Rhoads walked in with an amplifier this big and started warming up. And Ozzy said, you get the gig. That's how good Randy Rhoads was. And, of course, a lot of these are just backstories and fabricated reality, folks. We know this. But we do know that Randy Rhoads had already told the Osbournes this was his last tour. Wasn't what Randy wanted to do, be out in a metal band singing about Satan on the road every night. It was wearing him down quick. What he had told them is he would play on the next record and help write the songs. But if you know anything about mass media, that wasn't going to fly, folks. You know, they weren't going to have Randy cutting the records and send Brad Gillis out on the road. Plus, when you watch Ozzy talk about it, Ozzy literally said, I've pulled a lot of pranks, and everybody wants to ask me about my favorite pranks. And he says, that's ridiculous. I just lost my friend. He said, you want to know the biggest prank I've ever been through? It's Randy's death. But he used the word prank, folks. We all know Ozzy ain't the brightest crayon in the box. I seen him say it. He called Randy Rhodes' death a prank. Okay. At this point in our research, all logic would say, listen, if you want to know if Randy was really killed or not, I just say do your research, right? Form your own opinion. I didn't do much research. I already formed my opinion, but it's also based on knowing the MO of the system. You study the system long enough, it doesn't take but a couple of shreds of evidence for you to go, yeah, this one is absolutely right in their old wheelhouse. Similar situation with John Bonham. John Bonham had openly stated many times he was done with Zeppelin. Couldn't do it anymore. It was killing him. Take what you want, leave the rest, folks. But I always like to say, if there's one celebrity that the parasitical puppets pulling the strings that are having their strings pulled by bigger parasitical puppets that are having their strings pulled by bigger parasitical puppets that are having their strings pulled by parasitical parasite, you get it, folks. What I've always wanted to say, if they made any mistakes, we know they don't make any mistakes and everything's by design. But if there's one thing they could go back and undo, because it's really hard to undo a fake death, right? The guy's gone now. He's got to go live on the magical, mystical island, which I always also say that's bullshit. You think you're going to recognize John Bonham? All you got to do is change a couple things. Grow a mustache, shave the mustache, put a beard on, wear a hat. You're not just going to, it's fucking John Bonham. Yeah, my ass. These guys don't have to hide, folks. When you see them live on TV, I mean, maybe not John Bonham, but I mean, come on, they're all made up. They're under the lights. They don't have to go off and live on an island, folks. They just blend in. It's not that difficult. But if there's one that they could undo, if all of the beer drinking parties down at the lodge, how many times do you suppose guys go, God, I wish we could bring John Bonham back. That guy, it's very rare that you say about a drummer that he's one of the best musicians to ever walk on the earth. John Bonham is one of the most incredible musicians I have ever seen play. One of the reasons Zeppelin's music was so great is they'd lay down a riff and John Bonham would play it in a different time signature. It makes it look easy and natural. To all my drummer friends out there, tell me I'm wrong. Half the shit they play, John Bonham's playing in a different time signature, folks. John Bonham is one of the best musicians to ever rock out. I'm not going to compare him to classical composers. You want to talk about playing the drums and rocking out? Shit. John Bonham, one of the best musicians I've ever seen. Period. If they made any mistakes down at the old Blue Lodge, it was letting go of John Bonham. Boy, I bet they sit around going, man, I know we faked his death, but is there a way? We could call it a Mandela effect. Hell yeah, let's do that. Let's bring him back and we just won't say a damn word. What do you guys mean John Bonham died? Give us a new Mandela effect. We want John Bonham playing the drums. Hell, I want him in my band, folks. I'll start a new band. I don't have a band anymore, but I'll start a new damn band if John Bonham can play with me. Hell, although he'll kick me out of the room in no time. He'll go, get me some musicians in here now. Racism. I told you I didn't have shit to say this morning, folks. Racism, very hot, important topic. I'm going to say a couple things. I don't like rap. I don't like pop music. I don't like extremely negative music. All of these things. I almost never listen to rap. I've never really liked rap. I'm sure you all have heard of Tom McDonald and Mr. Calhoun. Well, they just released a cut called White Boys. And listen, I don't want to propagate the system and just feed these boys a bunch of cash. But you want to talk about a couple of fellas spitting some truth. Holy Jesus. White Boys, Tom McDonald, Mr. Calhoun. It ain't but a 2.5 minute song or something. It's a puff piece, mainstream, right? This is what mainstream has become. But damn, wonderful little cut because it tells the whole world we're not buying your racism bullshit anymore. Okay? That's what it really says. But it's really a good little tune. Now I've only heard it like 2 or 3 times because I had to go back and listen, folks. And that's rare for me. Somebody recommends a rap song. You think I'm going to listen to it twice? I don't have time to listen to it the first time. But if I do, this one will have you go back and listen a couple times, folks, because it's pretty darn cool. If we want to talk about the giant, and now he claims he's independent. Right. I'll just stay out of that conversation. I'm not here to rip on the dude. Claims he's independent. I got no argument, folks. Go check it out. White Boys. Tom McDonald and his boy, Calhoun. These two cats are pretty damn cool. And man, can they spit it. Man, it's enough to make you go back and start listening to some more rap. Anyway, hat tip to Tom McDonald for absolutely pissing all over racism. Because we're tired of it, folks. We're being played. We're being played. They even tell us what the human race is. The human race. Okay? There's one of us, folks. One race, one love. Get over it. Turn the television off. Be a good man, and you can be Lucky's friend. I don't care what you look like, man. I love culture, right? It's all about culture. You know, my band was pretty damn good with a Mexican on the drums and a brother on the bass and a white Irish boy that's an extreme rebel up front with the microphone in a Gibson 335. We had a pretty damn cool band, and we were kind of good. We was getting rebooked everywhere we went, so we built a nice circuit, folks. Made a nice... I don't even know how much I made. I just carried my money in a roll like a true blues man. Never counted it. When the roll got small, I hoped and prayed there was a couple 100 gallons of fuel in the bus to get us through the next gig. That's all there is to it, folks. Living the blues. Racism. So I got a Mexican drummer and a brother on the bass. Well, we got us a gig in Clarksdale, Mississippi on like a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night. It's what we call in the business a filler gig. We don't really want to have the night off. So we go down there, we play a club called Ground Zero. Ironically, Morgan Freeman, who a lot of people say is Jimi Hendrix, by the way. Another fabricated death by the system. You do a little research into that one. It's pretty compelling, but I'm not going to give you an opinion either way. I think so, but I think it is. Morgan Freeman, Jimi Hendrix. One thing you'll never see is Morgan Freeman playing a Strat on any of his movies. He's left-handed, by the way. Plays his Stratocaster backwards. How strange is that? Owns a blues club in Clarksdale, Mississippi. So old Morgan Freeman, the left-hander, that'll never pick up a guitar and play in any of his shows, even though he can play the guitar, folks. I think that would have worked its way into a movie, you know, like Black Snake Moan. The dude had a you get it, folks. They can't have Morgan picking up no guitar, no Stratocaster left-handed and slinging that upside-down Stratocaster for y'all. You might recognize a little tone or something. You know? So I'm playing Morgan Freeman's club, right? On like a Tuesday or a Wednesday night. Well, those kind of gigs, we just try to have a good old time, man. You know, the whole gig is kind of low pressure. It's Tuesday night. They try to scam us right off the bat. Life on the road, folks. Now you're talking about a guy that's in the club. They scam a lot worse than real folk. Real folk actually take good care of you. We always made the most money at the little independently owned out in the country honky-tonks where the bar owner had integrity and honesty and wanted to make sure that the band was well taken care of so that they could come back and do it again because the bar owner made a lot of money. Old Lucky's tour bus rolls back into town. The bar have 3-4 times the night that it normally does. That's why we get rebooked. And the more you get rebooked and you come back 3 or 4 months later or next year, they're all waiting on you, folks. They bring the bottles. They know what we drink. I always would get the call. Who's the new bass player? That's an inside joke, folks, but I would get that call every year heading south. The other girls would call. Who's the new bass player and what does he drink? We'll have a bottle for him when he gets here. Yeah, life on the road. So, racism. So we're playing Morgan Freeman's club on like a freaking Tuesday night. We got to go on early, like 8 o'clock or something. The band's got to come and get old Lucky because I got drunk and I got the bartender chick in the bus and her boyfriend is the sound guy. And they know what's going to happen. So they come and break it all up and they get me and the waitress back into the bar. I'm already got 12, 13 double crown on the rocks in me because it's a Tuesday night and the bus is parked for the night, folks. They come and get me. Get back in the bar, Lucky. We got a gig to play. That sound guy's going to be mad and he's going to try to kick your ass and we haven't even played our show yet. Save it till after the show, Lucky. The bass player is mad at me because I was smoking a little of his green. We all kept our... Anyway, I don't want to talk about all this. I will get to how we carried our weed all over the country when it was illegal back then. Particularly, we're playing in the South. Right now, I'm telling you, I'm in Clarksdale, Mississippi, right? So we're in Clarksdale, Mississippi. What a cool town. We just had a blast all day before the gig. We got there real early. So Lucky got a bunch of Crown Royal in him, chasing the bartender around. So it's time. So while I'm sitting there at the bar, well, this big old black fella comes up to me. Now, keep in mind, we're in Clarksdale, Mississippi. This is poverty-stricken. I mean, look, $5 in downtown Clarksdale, Mississippi is worth like, is the equivalent of me having $100 bill in my pocket up here, right? These guys ain't got no bread. There's no work. There ain't nothing to do. They're out there in the Delta, essentially. There is no money in this town, man. So this big old black fella comes up to me, big dude and an older dude, maybe 80 years old, 70 years old. I don't know. But this guy, he's got a mouthful of giant teeth and we're in Clarksdale, Mississippi. Well, this fella comes up to me and starts talking this down home stuff. And folks, I speak to a lot of people and I can't understand a single word ever comes out of this guy's mouth except for D. It's all I keep hearing is D. But this guy is like, hey, man, D. And I hear that D. Hey, D. Well, I don't know how to respond. It's kind of embarrassing, right? Because here I'm a blues man on the road and I don't speak down home. I can't understand this guy. I'm a little embarrassed, right? Like, oh man, it's messing with my credibility here. I should be able to speak fluent down home Clarksdale talk by this point in my career. Well, this guy, D. That's all I keep getting is D. I don't know what the hell this old man's talking about. So I said, I'll buy you a drink, man. Oh, yeah. Waitress brings him his drink. This guy sits next to me and has a 20-minute conversation with me, and I just nod my head and smile because I never got a word come out of his mouth, right? Not a word. All I kept hearing was D. So I just smiled and pretended I could hardly hear him because it was loud, and I drank with the fella and cheers a couple times. He'd say something and laugh, and I'd give him a toast. Never heard a word he said, folks. Couldn't understand any of it, right? So a little while later, I see my bass player sitting across at a table. Now he's sitting with that fella, right? This is like after our first set. And I see my bass player nodding and everything. Well, I got a black bass player. I figure these guys are cutting it up, right? There's, this guy's speaking down home, right? Hey, man, my bass player's got me covered. Now he's over there talking to the dude. He speaks that shit. He can speak that shit, I'm thinking, right? He knows every word coming out of this guy's mouth. I look, I see my bass player's lips flapping. I see the other guy's lips flapping. I'm like, great. Finally, that old man found a buddy he can talk to, and they can understand each other. My bass player's name is Gino, by the way. So I'm like, thank God Gino's over there talking to that guy. Because I can't understand a fucking word he's saying, right? So, turns out, this old man been asking me all night if he can come up and play with us, and he wants to play in D. Eventually, I got this. Someone else told me, and I brought him up, and we played a song in D. And he was pretty cool at the microphone, man. Couldn't understand a goddamn thing come out of his mouth, and I ain't lying, folks. And I know a lot of languages. I know Southern, I know Louisiana, I know Texas, I know West Coast, I know Hawaii. How's it, bro? I've been everywhere, man. I hung out in Puerto Rico. I'd stick my toes in the Caribbean Sea, or whatever the hell you want to call it. Lucky been a lot of places, man. But I didn't speak the language this fella was talking, so I was just really happy that Gino sat down with him and had a nice conversation with him. Now, it ended up being a wild night, folks, like a lot of them are. Woke up the next day nice and hungover. And our next gig is in northern Georgia, Dalton, Georgia, on a Friday. And we just finished, I believe it was a Tuesday, so we got a few nights off. But I had met a little gal down there in Georgia who gave me her number. It was down there in the little black book, right? So I says, hey, boys. So I called this girl up. Yeah, we'll be waiting on you. I said, hey, boys, we're cutting across to Alabama, heading for Summerville, Georgia. They both go, and they know I'm hungover as a motherfucker. Lucky, keep the bus in the ditch. Keep it in the ditch, man. That's our rule. And they know Lucky's all kinds of trouble out there on the road, right? So they always say keep it in the ditch. That means stay on the freeway where you have an opportunity to blend in. Keep it in the ditch, Lucky. I says, hell no, I'm looking at my Rand McNally here. There's a gal in Somerville waiting on me. We're cutting across Alabama, boys. So this is a hell of a story, but we're going to stick to the racism thing first. So we get about an hour or two out of Clarksdale, and I'm starting to wake up. I got my couple cups of coffee in me, 2 joints and a half pack of Marlboros. So we all start flapping our jaws. And I say to Gino, man, I was so glad you went and started talking to that guy. I felt bad. I couldn't understand a fucking thing coming out of his mouth, Gino. That guy was that guy was talking down home like I ain't never heard down home spoken. Most of them folks in Clarksdale, I could speak pretty fluent Mississippi, folks. Pretty fluent Delta even. Because I'm a well-traveled blues guy in the old days, right? So I'm telling Gino, man, I'm so glad you went and talked to that guy. I says, Gino, he sat next to me. I said, I just bought him a bunch of drinks because I couldn't understand a goddamn thing coming out of his mouth other than that D, which he did get up and jam with us in D. And he gave us a record, he gave us a CD. Dude had a CD, and I'll get to that in a minute too. So we're starting to talk now. Lucky's waking up, right? First hour and a half of the bus ride, I'm just hungover. Heading for this little side road to go through Alabama. And the band's a little ruffled because they know better. And they're still telling me, keep it in the ditch. Keep it in the ditch, Lucky. You idiot. You don't want to cut across rural middle Alabama following little blacktop roads on your Rand McNally. Yes, I do, boys. We're heading for Somerville. Right? Life on the road, man. The good old days. They're not as good as Lucky makes them sound. But there's a lot of good spots. So I'm telling Gino, man, I give him my whole 10 minutes, and I start saying, I couldn't understand a goddamn thing coming out of that guy's mouth, Gino. I'm so glad you took the time to have a conversation with him, man. And Gino just starts laughing. He can no longer speak to me. He's barely holding it together. He's belly laughing like I've never seen the fella laugh. Now, any of my friends here that are brothers are probably already laughing and starting to understand what I'm about to tell you. Now, Gino's the only guy on the bus that ain't kind of white, right? I mean, I'm white as a motherfucker. My drummer's kind of an off-white, and Gino's the brother from the Detroit hood, right? So he's laughing so hard that he can't even explain to me why he's laughing so hard. I'm kind of laughing because it's pretty funny that old Lucky can't understand this black guy. So I'm thinking Gino's laughing at me because I didn't understand the down-home language. Gino's laughing so hard he can't get a word out, and it's not good enough to talk to the white boys. He instantly picks up his phone and has to call his best friend back in Southfield, Michigan. Gino ain't living in the hood at this point, y'all. Gino's an intelligent, successful cat and a man of good character, as I said before. Gino can't even, he's laughing so hard, he can't even talk to the white boys in the bus because he knows we ain't going to get what he's trying to say. And I'm confused. I'm like, Gino's laughing so hard he can't stay in his chair. Did I say something wrong? Gino has to call his fucking homie. He gets on the phone and he's laughing so hard and he's going, "You're not going to believe these motherfucking white boys I'm playing with." And he can barely speak. He's laughing so hard. And he says, "This goddamn white boy that I'm playing with runs into this black guy in Clarksdale that can't speak because he's got so many goddamn teeth in his mouth. And he can hardly tell his homie the story because he's laughing so hard. When I finally get what he's laughing at, when he says, Gino says, "I couldn't understand a goddamn thing this motherfucker was saying." Gino couldn't understand a damn thing that this black guy was saying either. Gino was faking his way through the conversation because all this guy from Clarksdale could do is go, "Hey, D." So Gino was laughing at me for being so fucking white that I assumed, see, the joke to Gino was that because I'm white, that I assumed that Gino could understand that speech. And he thought it was the funniest fucking thing. Of course, he thought I was, I guess people like to call that racism. That's not racism, folks. That's called culture. The old white Irish boy didn't get the joke for a while. Right? But that's funny shit. We laughed for hours. Gino laughed for 2 hours. He called 4 or 5 of his buddies at home to tell them how funny it was that the dumbass white boy driving the bus thought that he could understand this black guy that had so many teeth in his mouth he couldn't talk. So then we put the CD in. It's got 12 songs. Every song's the same, but with different mumbling. But every song is in D, with no changes, folks. Want to talk about authentic blues? Every song is in D with no other chords. And I'm not making this up. He had songs like Long Black Cadillac, D chord. Ding, Long Black Cadillac. That's how the guy would sing. Long Black Cadillac, Long Black Cadillac. And never leave the D chord. Pretty damn cool for an old 80-year-old from Clarksdale, Mississippi, if you ask old Lucky. We kept that CD around and listened to it every now and again when we wanted to get some churching up. Here's some real blues out of Clarksdale, right? So that's my story on racism, folks. But wait, there's more. Now we got old Lucky driving the bus across Alabama while we're laughing our asses off. All of a sudden, we've been on the road about 3 hours. I says, "Billy, roll me a joint." By the way, for all you younger folks that don't know how to travel with pot, my bus had this bus was absolutely decked, front to back, head to toe, Beautiful, beautiful media entertainment system. And we were in those years where we still had a VCR on the bus. I believe we had a DVD player as well, but we had a VCR on the bus back then, and it was up in the rack, way up high, up by me where I'm driving, but way up high. Well, my drummer, oh man, I could just go on because these stories are so funny, folks. The first couple days of the very first leg of the very first tour, I'm a little nervous because it's the very first leg of the very first tour, very first trip in the bus, blah, blah, blah. So I'm paying attention, folks. I'm getting us down south. We played a New Year's gig in Detroit, and then our next gig was like January 2nd on St. Simon's Island, Georgia, which actually fucked up my 335, going from frozen tundra to hot and humid. I was nervous. When I pulled my guitar out of the case 20 minutes before showtime, the strings were laying on the fretboard and wouldn't even play. I took it up there. I pulled my Les Paul out just in case, and it was still okay. But I took the 335 in the bar and set it on the stand and hoped and prayed. And when we went on stage, it was about half. It had about half corrected itself. You couldn't play any of the notes high up the neck yet. They would just go tink, tink, tink. But I had my chords. So I kept that Les Paul behind me, and I started the show, and the guitar softened up right quick. And it was still a little rough by the end of night one, especially way up high the neck. But I was able to shred that night because I had some really low action. I can tell you stories about that gig, but I'll get too lost. Oh, lucky driving the bus across Alabama on a Wednesday afternoon after leaving Clarksdale, Mississippi, and I'm hung over like a motherfucker. Now, all I used to do was a little alcohol and reefer out there, but I kept a couple of bottles in the... Life on the road is rough, so I always kept a couple medicine bottles back in the medicine cabinet in the bus. I just had a couple of things in there, like Valium. Now, I wasn't no Valium junkie. I almost never touched them, but I learned early on to keep some on the bus. They can really get you out of a pickle, folks, at least for old Lucky. So, we're driving across the Alabama on a little 2-track. Now it's getting all thin. We're way out in the country. And I asked Billy, hey, man, roll us a joint. Oh, the VCR. So the first gig on the way to Georgia Island a few years before, Billy bought these really cool candles with the old plug with the plastic ring around it that plugs and seals the jar. Right? Sealed candle. And then pull the jar off. The first 4, 5, 6 days I was driving the bus, I noticed him back there with a pocket knife whittling all this wax. And he kept on. I'm like, I don't know, maybe he likes to frickin' whittle. I don't know. I had so much on my mind, I never asked him what he was doing. Then he gets them all done. He says, look, now we're 2 weeks into the tour. And he spent 2 weeks whittling wax out of these candles while I was driving. And he threw all the wax away. Now he's got empty jars. Well, the first thing he says is, look, I got all the wax out of these jars so we can keep our pot in here because they seal and you can't smell it. And the first thing I say is, that's what you've been doing? Why didn't you just light them? And he goes, ah! That's funny right there. He literally never thought to burn the wax. He spent 5 hours a day plucking wax out with his pocket knife. Yeah, folks, humor on the road. I picked on him for a long time about that. As soon as I said you could have just lit him and burned all the wax in about one night. So Billy's got us 3 little cool little jars that seal, right? Well, Billy stays on the mission. That's great because we each bring an ounce of pot, right? We're going to be gone 18 days, 22 days, Then we're going to go back to Detroit for 4 to 6 to 10, 12 days. Then we're leaving for another 2 months. I used to like the 2-month runs. That's how I say we stayed on the road 8 months out of the year. Most of my runs were 2 months. A lot of them with no hotels, folks. 3 guys on a bus. Now we had a shower and we took care of the water system. We had a nice bathroom and I had the master bedroom in the back. And, we was doing all right. So So Billy's got us these three little things. Well, Billy then takes apart the VCR. Here's what's cool. VCRs are half digital and half analog. The technology that's used to run the tape and all that is all analog stuff. Billy finds a way to get all three of these jars inside the VCR, each one with an ounce of pot squished in it and the lid on so it doesn't stink. He gets all three jars in the VCR and we can still watch a tape. Now, how badass is that? So then you put the 4 screws back in the cover and we'd leave them just loose enough. And we'd just keep a little Phillips screwdriver laying around. No one would ever notice. Worked like a charm. We had lots of cops on the bus. Usually the VCR was on with a tape sticking out of it. It's lit up. No one ever thought to open up our VCR. So we got really dedicated to this because we didn't want to stay a night in a local, dungeon. So we rolled our joints one at a time when we was moving, and everything had to be back in the VCR and sealed up and put back in position before we would roll that joint. So he might roll 3, right? Because he can eat a couple. But everything was sealed up in that VCR before we were blazing pot driving across Alabama. So I tell Billy, hey, man, it's been 4 hours. I'm driving across Alabama where the band don't want me to be. They want me in the ditch. And I say, roll me a joint, Billy. The first time in 2 years he ever said no. Nope, ain't rolling one. I said, what? I said, dude, I'm fucking driving the bus. This ain't fair. Get me the pot. I'll roll it up here. Nope, not getting it for you. What? This is why Billy's one of my dear, dear friends. Billy's sniffing it out. Billy's smelling trouble. That's why you have a good band, folks. Watch your ass for you. Won't roll me a joint. Of course, Lucky's pissed. I'm bitching at him. I'm fucking, fuck you. I'll pull over and roll my own. So, before long, I'm busy telling Billy over and over, roll some goddamn joints. I can only drive so far without firing up a cannon, boys. Roll me a joint. Nope, but here's a cup of coffee, Lucky. You fucker. Roll me a goddamn joint. Well, we pull up to a stoplight. I look over to my left, and there's a closed business. And there's a cop sitting in there. I can see him. He's got a cowboy hat on, mirrored sunglasses, and he looks like he's about 19 years old. Well, I've got a fully smoked black window that if it were closed at this moment in time, this story probably wouldn't exist. But it was wide open because Lucky likes to have his arm hanging out the window, and I like to smile at the girls and whatever the hell's going on, right? My window's wide open because Lucky's an outside guy. I look over at this cop, and he looks at me. I look at him again. He's still looking at me. We're in Alabama, rural Alabama. And there ain't another car in sight. I'm the only other vehicle. Me and the cop at the closed business. So I'm already starting to vibrate a little bit. The boys didn't notice yet. So I wait till the light turns green. I hit the gas and roll through. I say, boys, we're getting pulled over. They both go, what? Come on, Lucky. I said, we're getting pulled over. Is he behind us? Not yet. He's sitting in the parking lot. But I guarantee you, boys, we're getting pulled over. Well, sure as shit, this guy pulls me over. Now, I'm back on the little blacktop, so it takes me 5 minutes to find somewhere because the road is crowned so much. My bus weighs 45,000 pounds, folks. You don't just whip over on the shoulder of a road that's slanted like this going into a ditch. Well, this guy starts pulling out. I'm like, Jesus Christ, he's going to try to get me for fleeing and eluding. I got to pull over. So I pull over half in the road and half my bus. So now the bus is sitting on a big old angle. Well, we kill the power. We got all the tricks. We kill the power inside the bus so the lights can't come on and stuff because it's about dusk at this point. So the cop, I already know he's coming on the bus. So I give Billy the routine. We're getting pulled over, Billy. Kill the power. He goes back to the circuit board, kills all the powers and everything, make sure the generator's off, kill any circuits in case the cop figures out he can fire up the generator and get full power. We darken the inside of the bus, and Billy does his super quick bleach mop. In case the dogs come, folks. That'll screw up their nose in 5 seconds. Billy has this all mop and shit ready to go. Does the kitchen floor with quick bleach, sits down. We're all sitting in our chairs. Well, this cop comes up to my window first, and I said, "Evening, officer. Did I do something wrong?" And this cop says, "Nope. I'm just a bored country cop, and I ain't got shit to do." Lucky started shaking in double time right then. And that is no bullshit, folks. I'll never forget those words. I almost put it in a song at one point, right? I'm just a bored country cop and I ain't got shit to do. But he lengthened it to a 1-minute sentence. Really fucking scary if you're a band from Detroit in rural Alabama with a bus full of pot. All right. I'm not going to give you that entire story. I will say, I mean, it was an hour stop, okay? This guy was asking about calling the dogs. I mean, he was all up in the bus. He's looking at Lucky. Now, he's only 19 years old, but he knew he could look at me and go, "There's pot in this fucking bus." We got 3 musicians from Detroit, and just look at the guy driving. We know there's pot in this bus, boys. All right, so he's going on and on about where's the drugs and this and that. I'm telling him, "Sir, I don't allow that sort of stuff on my bus. I'm a professional musician. I've been doing this a long time. If I were to allow that kind of stuff on my bus, you think I could do what I'm doing? You think I could drive across rural Alabama to get from one gig to the next with a bus full of dope? Come on, sir, I'm a professional." And then I got him. I started talking about vocal harmonies because he was noticing there's a Mexican and a black guy, and they got some age on them, and the black guy's ignoring them. You want to know what Gino did while the cop was on the bus? He stayed on his laptop looking at giant black butts of females. That's what Gino liked to do. You know, not ripping on the guy. It's culture. Gino literally never even stopped looking at big asses. The cop keeps looking at Gino. By the way, Gino looks a lot like B.B. King. When we left, I was laughing. I said, "We should have just told him you were B.B. King and I'm the driver." He would have let us go. So anyway, this cop is all fired up. He's bringing the dogs. He's da-da-da-da-da. Well, Lucky starts talking about vocal harmonies. I had to segue it in because I'm trying to lay this professional rap on the cop, right? It's all I got at this point, folks. So I'm going, "These are professionals, sir. We do a lot of vocal harmonies. These 2 guys right here these are angels. These guys have voices of angels," which is absolute truth, folks. You know, I don't have the voice of an angel. These guys that were playing with me, man, our vocal harmonies these guys harmonized behind me, 3-part harmonies, like you wouldn't believe. Just a huge part of what we were doing out there on the road. These guys, both of them, sang like birds. So I'm telling the cop, "We're all about vocal harmonies, sir." And the cop says, "Oh, well, I love singing in choir. I'm in the choir at my church." Boom. I think I got this guy. We start talking about church and, "Oh, yeah, yes, sir." And I just go on and on. I found his soft spot. "Well, sir, our music just couldn't be what it is without these harmonies." Okay. So now he's on the fence, but he's been in my bus for 45 minutes. We know what he wants to do, right? You don't pull someone over for 45 minutes unless you got some intention. Here's where I got extra lucky. The bus is sitting like this, and I got marble floor up front and a marble staircase leading out of the bus. Yes, real marble. This cop, of course, is wearing his black wingtips or whatnot. He steps on that marble and it's slanted like this, and both his feet come right out from under him. Of course, he's got his gun and everything right there. Well, I was right behind him, folks. I caught him and saved him from cracking the back of his head really hard. So I caught the cop, and not only did I catch him, my arms and hands are all over his gun and his nightstick and blah, blah, blah. In a nutshell, by the time that incident was over, this cop knew that I just saved him, and I could have reversed the situation on him real quick. Now, Lucky don't talk that way, folks, but this cop knew what just happened, okay? He was out there by himself, bored, with nothing to do, okay? I could have had his revolver in my hand, and he knew it. Understand? That cop could have lost his life because he slipped. And he knows it, right? So I caught the fella. My hands are all over all of his equipment, including his gun. He uprights himself, and I go, wow, that was close. Man, I'm so glad I caught you. Oh, thanks, bud. Well, you can understand he's not so inclined to bring the dogs now. So we leave him with now he wants some of our music. So I leave him with my first record, the only one that was out at that time. It's called Devil's Ride. The first song, side one. I start singing about drinking whiskey and smoking weed and getting high. And I say I'm going to do it till I die. Okay? So I give him the copy of the record, Devil's Ride. Now, for those of you who are well-researched, you probably understand what I'm saying there. You know, it's back to this whole, we're down here, folks. We're on Lucifer's turf. We know it, right? This is the Devil's Ride. We're just on it. So I give him my record, Devil's Ride. And of course, we hit the road, and I start barking orders as soon as I'm shaking like a leaf from the tree. Billy, we need 4 fucking joints, and I need that bottle of Valium. He's like, ah. He goes and he gets me the bottle of Valium. Billy knows me. Get me a fucking Dr. Pepper and that bottle of Valium. Bring it up here, Billy, please. Okay, so he does, of course. Now, I'm hauling ass at this point. I got the hammer down. The boys say, what are you trying to do? I said, I'm got to make sure we get out of Alabama before that cop gets home and puts that CD in, man. He gonna hunt us down. He starts listening to Lucky's music. He's coming, boys. Oh, man. So anyway, yeah, I had to pull over. As soon as we crossed the Alabama line into Georgia, I pulled over, and I had to let the Valium kick in before I could drive anymore. Now, normally I would turn the wheel over to my buddy Billy, who played the drums and drove the bus for me when I wasn't able to. But we were in rural. We weren't on Billy's type of turf, you know. We was in Lucky's type of turf. Blacktop ribbon roads out in the country. Now it's pitch black outside. I said, just give me a couple hours, boys. Let these Valium kick in. I'll get us down to Somerville, which I did. And not only did I meet that gal in Somerville, a few days later, I had a really nice song roll off my tongue about that trip to Somerville. So maybe next time I pick up my guitar, I'll play y'all that song. But anyway, I told y'all I didn't have shit to say this morning. I guess I better wrap it up with that, eh? That's another long-ass moment of tone from the road with your friend, Lucky Haskins. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and stay true, y'all.